Every spring, millions of gardeners do the exact same thing. They buy new seeds, prepare new beds and start new plants, and rebuild much of their food garden from scratch. Year after year, season after season. Most people simply assume that's how food production works. Plant, harvest, start over, plant, harvest, start over. But here's something surprisingly few gardeners realize. A handful of vegetables quietly ignore that entire cycle. Plant them once, and some can continue producing food for years, sometimes decades. Some return every spring without being invited. Some spread themselves. Some become more productive with age. And some seem almost determined to keep growing no matter what happens around them. Which raises an interesting question. What if the most productive vegetables aren't the ones requiring the most work? What if they're the ones doing most of the work themselves? Because once you discover how these plants operate, you start looking at food production very differently. Most vegetable gardening is built around annual crops: tomatoes, beans, lettuce, cucumbers. They're wonderful plants. But every year they ask for the same thing. Start over, new seeds, new planting, new effort, new maintenance. And after years of gardening, many people begin noticing something strange. The garden never seems to remember, no matter how successful last season was. Everything resets again. But imagine if part of your garden worked differently. Imagine planting something once, then watching it become stronger, larger, and more productive over time. Not restarting every spring, continuing. And that's where the real secret begins. Because this isn't really about perennial vegetables. It's about something much more interesting. Some vegetables behave more like ecosystems than crops. They don't restart. They continue. They expand. They establish themselves. They become increasingly resilient. And once they settle into a space, they begin creating a food system that largely takes care of itself. That's how nature works. Forests don't restart every year. Grasslands don't restart every year. Wetlands don't restart every year. Nature builds continuity. Each season builds on the one before it. And surprisingly, a small group of vegetables does exactly the same thing. Instead of relying on constant replanting, they store energy underground. They develop deep roots. They regenerate naturally. Some even reproduce themselves without any help. The longer they're established, the stronger they often become. And here's the mistake many gardeners make. They spend years chasing fragile crops while ignoring plants that could be producing food for them year after year. Sometimes the easiest harvests come from plants that were established long ago. Long enough that people forget when they were even planted. The first example might be the strangest of all. Egyptian walking onion. This is the vegetable that plants itself. And yes, it sounds almost made up. Instead of producing seeds, these onions create small bulbs on top of their stalks. As those bulbs become heavier, the stalk bends. Eventually it falls over. The bulbs touch the ground, and new onions begin growing there. The plant literally walks through the garden. Gardeners often laugh because onions start appearing in places they never planted them. One year, they're in one corner. A few years later, they've quietly established an entire colony nearby. It's one of those plants that makes you stop and think, wait, seriously? Asparagus. The 20-year harvest. Most vegetables measure their productivity in months. Asparagus measures it in decades. Once established, an asparagus bed can continue producing year after year with surprisingly little intervention. In fact, some gardeners harvest asparagus from beds planted long before they moved onto the property. Imagine cutting fresh asparagus every spring from plants established by someone else years ago. The original gardener may be gone. The harvest remains. That's not a crop. That's continuity. Rhubarb, the plant that gets bigger every year. Every spring, when much of the garden still looks tired and lifeless, rhubarb suddenly emerges from the ground. Sometimes through cold soil, sometimes after winter, snow has barely disappeared. And year after year, it returns larger than before. Some rhubarb plants become so old that they're actually older than the people harvesting them. Think about that for a moment. A plant quietly producing food across generations. Not because anyone forces it to, because that's simply what it does. Now let's talk about a vegetable that creates the opposite problem: Jerusalem artichoke. The vegetable you may never remove again. Many gardeners first plant Jerusalem artichokes because they're productive, nutritious, and easy to grow. Then something unexpected happens. They realize just how enthusiastic the plant really is. Tiny pieces left in the ground often return. New shoots appear. More tubers develop. And suddenly the conversation changes from, "How do I grow this?" to, "How do I slow it down?" Gardeners often joke that nobody truly owns Jerusalem artichokes. You merely negotiate with them. And that's exactly what makes them fascinating. They don't think like annual crops. They think like survivors. Sorrel. If you've ever tasted sorrel for the first time, you probably remember the surprise. Most leafy plants don't have that bright, almost lemon-like flavor. Yet for generations, people kept gathering it whenever spring returned. And once you understand why, its long history starts making a lot more sense. The first harvest of spring. Before the tomatoes, before the beans, before most of the garden fully wakes up. Sorrel is often already growing. Some gardeners discover fresh sorrel leaves, while much of the landscape still feels stuck between winter and spring. That early harvest creates something valuable: food when little else is available. And once established, sorrel quietly repeats that gift year after year. Good King Henry. A plant many people have never heard of. And that's surprising, because for centuries, it was grown as a reliable food source. Today, it feels almost like lost gardening knowledge. The kind of plant previous generations understood instinctively. It's productive, reliable, and persistent. A reminder that not every useful vegetable became commercially popular. Some simply continued existing quietly in old gardens and forgotten corners of history. The self-seeding bonus plants. But while researching these plants, something unexpected kept appearing. Certain species didn't fit neatly into any category. They weren't always cultivated. They weren't always intentionally planted. Yet they kept showing up in old records and family traditions, almost as if people kept rediscovering them by accident. Dill, arugula, parsley. They're not perennial vegetables, but many gardeners notice something really strange. They keep coming back anyway. Seeds fall, plants disappear. Then months later, new seedlings appear in unexpected places. A patch of dill emerges beside a pathway. Parsley appears where nobody planted it. Arugula quietly returns after being forgotten entirely. It's one of the most enjoyable surprises in gardening. Discovering food that decided to return on its own. And here's one final discovery most people don't realize. Many of these plants become more resilient with age. Their roots grow deeper. Their underground energy reserves become larger. Some handle drought better than annual vegetables. Some recover from difficult seasons more easily. Some become increasingly productive over time. In other words, the system improves itself, which is exactly how natural ecosystems work. And Maybe that's the real lesson here.